or agent of any law enforcement agency of a federal, state, county, city, or township agency present. This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, state your name and your position. All clear. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in a public forum is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner to eliminate all conflict and false allegations. Is there anyone in attendance at tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency of a federal, state, county, city, or township agency present? This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, state your name, and state your position. Perfect. And one last time, this meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner to eliminate all conflict and false allegations. Is there anyone in attendance at tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency of a federal, state, county, city, township agency present? This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, state your name, and state your position. And we'll close with our prayer that is very handy. Oh, Holy Father, bless our meeting with eyes to see and ears to hear and voices to reply. These messages into being presented with an open and caring and compassionate heart for all our fellow brothers and sisters, as it shall be done. Take it away, Glenn.
Okay, well, this is an amicus curiae. I'm pretty well done with that. I'm giving it to a friend of mine to file on behalf of Robert Dunlap, who's in prison right now. Not in prison, he's pre-trial. We're doing our petition for writ of prohibition to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And
has it been heard prior?
All right.
Obviously, it's been heard prior, so it's obviously been not handled correctly.
There's been no trial yet, but he's been denied due process. It's an inquisition. And that's the issue we're bringing up, and it's all unconstitutional.
Well, that's awfully kind of him to share it with us, and you to share it with us.
So amicus curiae is a friend of the court. So we're just presenting an issue that they may or may not be aware of. We want to bring it to their attention. And so that's it basically right here. Now comes a friend of the court presenting an amicus curiae brief on behalf of Robert Dunlap, providing constitutional challenge to the 1871 Corporation, 16 Stat 419, domiciled in the District of Columbia and its minor estate, 31 CFR 363.6, and the National Bar Foundation for all violations of the organic laws as follows. There are 4 organic laws for the United States of America: the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, the Northwest Ordinance, and this Constitution for the United States of America. The District of Columbia, 1871, municipal corporation is a violation of the organic laws because it is Roman law from what is now the Vatican. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law. Because Rome was the capital of a group of ecclesiastical city-states in the Italian peninsula. Rome is the capital of the Pope's territories and of Italy, and recently the Milrus of the Roman Empire. And this is the longitude and latitude location of where it is on the planet. Rome is still a large and fine city, though not to be compared to ancient Rome. The streets are spacious and magnificently built. It has 5 bridges over the Tiber, 20 gates, 300 churches, a vast number of palaces, convents, triumphal arches, pillars, obelisks, statues, and theaters. And that's taken from the 1773 Encyclopedia Britannica, Volume 3, page 632. The Roman or Papal States stretch across the central part of the Italian peninsula in an oblique direction from the Adriatic to the Mediterranean, and between Tuscany, Modena, and Lombardy on the northwest and Naples on the southeast area, 17,822 square miles. Population in 1833, 2.7 million. Rome, the capital is Rome. The population is 153,000. Government is an elective monarchy. The Pope, for the time being, the absolute sovereign, with a consulting assembly of cardinals. And that's taken from Waterston Encyclopedia of Commerce and Mercantile Law, 1863, page 582. Pontificality, the state and government of the Pope of Rome, the papacy. That's 1830 Johnson's English Dictionary, page 707. So, and this is a set of books, this modern part of the universal history of the earliest account of time compiled from original writers. That's like about a 40-volume set of books that I happen to have digital versions of it. And it talks about Italy as the ecclesiastical state, okay? Rome being the ecclesiastical state was at this time almost totally usurped by different princes, in the city of Rome, a scene of confusion and uproar. The Romans, upon account of a great dearth, having stoned their senator to death. Innocent is the Pope. Innocent sent Cardinal Egidius Alvarez, a Spaniard, descended from the ancient kings of Leon, and as his legate into Italy, appointing him vicar over the ecclesiastical state, with full power of assembling an army and opposing the unjust possessors of the territories of the church. And that's in AD 1353. So this is basically just going to the fact that it's an ecclesiastical state. The history of Italy: Boniface seized the opportunity of his death, the Duke of Milan, to recover of the death of the Duke of Milan. This is what they're talking about. To recover several cities of the ecclesiastical state from which he, the Duke of Milan, had usurped. Bologna, Perugia, Ferrara voluntarily submitted, and some other places that resisted were taken and dismantled. And that's like in 1403. He was no less severe against the Jews and the Protestants, and ordered them to depart from within 3 months from all the territories of the ecclesiastical state, excepting Rome and Ancona. And that's in 1568. The history of Italy, 1198, Cardinal Licarius is chosen pope and takes the name of Innocent III. He receives allegiance from the prefect of Rome and requires homage from all in the ecclesiastical state. And the interesting thing about this is that Innocent III is the guy that King John was dealing with. Okay, King John, as in the Magna Carta. So a civil or municipal law is that which every sovereign kingdom or state has appropriated to itself. The appellation of municipal was originally confined to the laws of the municipia, right? That's Latin. This is all coming from Roman law. That's why Roman law, civil law, Roman civil law, and municipal law are the same. It came by degrees to signify all civil laws without distinction. No sovereign state can subsist without a supreme power or right of commanding in the last resort. The supreme power of any of one age cannot therefore be fettered by the enactment of the former age, otherwise it would cease to be supreme. Hence, the law last and date derogates from prior laws. That's Encyclopedia Britannica or a New Dictionary of Arts and Sciences, 1771, Volume 2, page 883, which means there's two national governments. Actually, that's kind of not relevant, so I think I'm going to take that out right now. Which violates Article 1 of the Amendment, which requires Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. And that's the First Amendment. Because Roman law is also ecclesiastical papal law for what is now the Vatican. The ecclesiastical papal states were annexed to the Kingdom of England in 1870. During and after the revolutions of 1848, sentiment on the peninsula grew for the establishment of a unified Italian kingdom. Southern Italy had not been united with northern Italy since early medieval period, being mostly under the rule of the Kingdom of Naples and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Northern Italy, in the early 19th century, came under the domination of the Kingdom of Sardinia, which, besides its namesake island, also ruled the expansive Piedmont and Savoy regions along the French-Italian borderlands. The formerly Republican leader in southern Italy, Giuseppe Garibaldi, made common cause with the House of Savoy to overthrow the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, and the people voted in a plebiscite to join Sardinia to form the Kingdom of Italy in 1861. The Papal States and the city of Rome were annexed to the kingdom in 1870, completing the unification of Italy. This kingdom lasted until the aftermath of World War II, when the 1946 Italian institutional referendum ended the monarchy, and that's taken from Wikipedia, which failed to change the character of the Papal States, being ecclesiastical. And in 1871, so they're saying in 1861, the Papal States, 1870, Papal States and the city of Rome were annexed to the kingdom in 1870. And so they're still Papal States, and they're ecclesiastical. You see what I'm saying? And in 1871, Congress approved an act to provide government for the District of Columbia at 16 Stat 419, that all or part of the territory of the United States included within the limits of the District of Columbia be, and the same is hereby created into a government by the name of the District of Columbia, by which name is hereby constituted a body corporate for municipal purposes, and may contract and be contracted with, sue and be sued, plead and be impleaded, have a seal, and exercise all other powers of a municipal corporation, not inconsistent with the Constitution and laws of the United States and the provisions of this act. And is bringing in the Vatican's Roman law into the land of America, which uses fraud and deception to supersede and replace common law. There's no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden, with penalties for disobedience with the command or crimes. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application, which is what precipitated the War of Independence, as found in the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, 1775. Statutes have been passed extending courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. Actually, I need to add something to that. think I'll do it while we're talking here.
You know, the church does not like you to mix state business with church business. They're very adamant about that. If you're becoming part of their crew, then one of the important questions that the priest will come and ask you is, do you believe there's any distinction between church and state? And if you answer, there cannot be, then you are looked at like you are not compliant.
Yeah, no doubt. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charters, we saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. That's dictatorship, okay? And so they're talking about Roman law here, really, if you think about it. And it's also talked about as some of the reasons for separation from the tyrant in the organic law, the Declaration of Independence. He is combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, which can only be talking about Roman law. And that's one of the grievances right here. Transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. That's talking about the minor estate. Taxing us without our consent. That's the minor estate. Depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. That's Roman law. Taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, altering fundamentally the forms of our government. That's all Roman law. He's abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. Because the crown of England and the kingdoms of England and Ireland are owned by the Vatican. Did you know that? This is taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. And not long after this, by a general excommunication of the king and people for several years, because they would not suffer an archbishop to be imposed upon them, King John was reduced to such straits that he surrendered his kingdom to Pope Innocent III to receive them again and hold them of him under the rent of 1,000 marks. That's what caused the concessions to the Pope in 1213. Because King John gave them to the Pope's ecclesiastical state and agreed to rent them back with the concessions to the Pope. And this is the concessions to the Pope. We will establish a perpetual obligation and concession. We will establish that from the proper and special revenues of our aforesaid kingdom, for all the service and customs which we ought to render for them, saving in all things the penny of St. Peter, the Roman Church shall receive yearly 1,000 marks sterling, namely at the feast of St. Michael 500 marks and Easter 500 marks. Namely for the Kingdom of England 500 for the Kingdom of England and 300 for the Kingdom of Ireland. So we gave them to the Pope and agreed to rent them back. And that's what Tomlin's Law Dictionary says here. And thereby became a tool of the Pope. And the Pope's tool passed the Sesquier V Act of 1666. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity, for when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs, to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. To be bound in conscience to account to a sesquier use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. Well, that's taxes. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. That's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of Martin Main. So and a use is a usufruct, short for usufruct. And a sesquier use is a fiction of law under the Pope's Roman law, invented by the praetors of Rome under the pretense of doing equity. This is Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition, page 520. Fictions of law. Fictions were invented by the Roman praetors who, not possessing the power to abrogate the law, were nevertheless willing to derogate from it under the pretense of doing equity. Fiction is the resource of weakness, which, in order to obtain its object, assumes as a fact what is known to be contrary to truth. When the legislator desires to accomplish his object, he need not feign, he commands. I need to underline that too. Fictions of law owe their origin to the legislative usurpations of the bench. And that's Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition, page 520. Fictions of law owe their origin to the legislative usurpations of the bench. Which is also why bills of attainder are prohibited under the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, as described herein, and was also brought into America with the Code of Law for the District of Columbia. And this is the Code of Law for the District of Columbia, the legal estate to be the cestque jus, 31 Stat 1432, which is now codified at 31 CFR 363.6, which is also one constitutional article under Article 1 and Amendment, because Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion. And a use is short for usufruct under the Vatican's Roman law. Those things which perish by capitis diminutio, of which kind are usufruct, an obligation to services on the part of freedmen contracted by oath and matters enforceable by a statutable action. And that's the commentaries of Gaius and the rules of Ulpian, translated with notes. Which is a type of trust, which is a dead thing and has no rights, which means most, if not all, court cases are dealing with Roman law of trusts, which means they're administrative law and the Vatican's Roman law. Courts ecclesiastical courts of proceeding according to the civil and canon law by citation, libel, answer upon oath, proof by witnesses, and after sentence for contempt by excommunication, and if the sentence is disliked, by appeal. If you don't like your sentence, appeal it. An administrator, a person authorized to manage and distribute the estate of an intestate, of a testator who has no executor. In English laws, administrators are the officers of the ordinary appointed by him in pursuance of the statute, and their title and authority are derived exclusively from the ecclesiastical judge by grants called letters of administration. At first, the ordinary was appointed to administrator under the Statute of Westminster, required the ordinary to appoint the next of kin in relations by blood of the deceased. And that's Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1883 edition, page 119. Ordinary is a civil law term for any judge who hath authority to take cognizance of causes in his own right, not by deputation. By the common law is taken for him who hath ordinary or exempt or immediate jurisdiction in causes ecclesiastical. The name is applied to a bishop who hath original jurisdiction, and an archbishop is the ordinary of the whole province, to visit and receive appeals from inferior jurisdictions. The word ordinary is also used for every commissary or official of the bishop or other ecclesiastical judge having judicial power. An archdeacon is an ordinary. The ordinaries may grant administration of intestates estates, but the bishop of the diocese is the true and only ordinary to certify excommunication, lawfulness of marriage, and such ecclesiastical and spiritual acts to the judges of the common law, for he is the person to whom the court is to write in such things. Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, which is ecclesiastical and comes from what is now the Vatican. The Roman or Papal states stretch across the central part of the Italian peninsula, which continues to this day. This is the Lateran Pact. The sovereignty and exclusive jurisdiction over the Vatican City, which Italy recognizes as appertaining to the Holy See, forbid any intervention therein on the part of the Italian government, or that any authority other than that of the Holy See shall be there acknowledged. That's the Lateran Pact, Article 4, that's 1929. I should put that in here. And like the Crown of England and the Kingdoms of England and Ireland, the 1871 corporation is now owned and operated by the Vatican because of the bankruptcy. It's an established fact that the United States federal government's been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. HGR 192, 73rd Congress in session, June 5, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause. Dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments. And is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. And that's U.S. Congressional Record, March 17, 1993. And it's evidenced by the Roman Achaea military staff that's planted on all conquered nations on the right side of the Speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives, and the two Roman fascia, bundles of rods bound to a weapon symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man on each side of the Speaker's podium of the U.S. House of Representatives. And the Pope even came to visit to address Congress 24th of September 2015, which is also why Nancy Pelosi, when she was Speaker, would say, we can't read this bill until after we pass it, because she's taken orders from her Vatican handlers. But all of this is unconstitutional and in violation of the organic laws and Article 1 and Amendment, because common law is the law of the land, which has always been here. And this is Hale versus Hinkle. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land long antecedent to the organization of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. Among his rights are refusal to incriminate himself and the immunity of himself and his property from arrest or seizure, except under a warrant of the law. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. Every system of law known to civilized society generated from or had as its component one of three well-known systems of ethics: pagan, Stoic, or Christian. The common law draws its subsistence from the latter. Its roots go deep into that system. The Christian concept of right and wrong and justice motivates every rule of equity. It is the guide by which we dissolve domestic frictions and the rule by which all legal controversies are settled. The Vatican's Roman law is full of fraud and deception, which is the same reason we took up arms against the Vatican's tyrant, for all the grievances listed in the organic law, the Declaration of Independence. And because of it, most, if not all, court cases are administrative inquisitions. An inquisition is one way of proceeding in ecclesiastical court. Courts ecclesiastical, spiritual courts are those courts which are held by the king's authority as the supreme governor of the church for matters which chiefly concern religion, and the laws and constitutions whereby the Church of England are governed. Diverse immemorial customs, our own provincial constitutions, and the canons made in convocations, especially those in the year 1603. Much oppression having been exercised through the channel on these courts on persons charged with trifling offenses within their spiritual jurisdiction, and you see that happening all the time today. Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, Volume 1. Compratorium in the civil law comprises a judicial inquest made by delegates or commissioners to find out and relate the truth of a cause. Gee, that sounds like one of these six-man jury trials. Roman or papal states stretch across the central part of the Italian peninsula in an oblique direction. I've already read this one. History of Italy, AD 1208, Cardinal Lacarius is chosen pope and takes the name of Innocent III. He receives allegiance from the prefect of Rome and requires homage from all in the ecclesiastical state. So Roman law comes from an ecclesiastical state, which continues to this day. And this is the 1929 Lateran Pact, Article 4. We already read that too. To use it as justification to assault people with the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, to deceptively assault people with a quasi-contract. Assumpsit. In its origin, an action of tort, assumpsit was soon transformed into an action of contract, becoming afterwards a remedy where there was neither tort nor contract. Based at first upon an express promise, it was afterwards supported upon an implied promise and even a fictitious promise. Remember, they're talking about fictions, okay? This is all fictions in Roman law. Introduced as a special manifestation of the action of the case, it soon acquired the dignity of a distinct form of action, which superseded debt, became concurrent with the count, with case upon a bailment, a warranty, and bills of exchange, and competed with equity in the case of essentially equitable quasi-contracts going out of the principle of unjust enrichment. Surely it would be hard to find a better illustration of the flexibility and power of self-development of the common law. Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Both in Roman and English law are certain obligations which were not in true contractual, but which the law treats as if they were. They're contractual in law, but not in fact, being the subject matter of a fictitious expansion of the sphere of contract to cover obligations which do not in reality fall within it. Remember, they said that a fiction under the pretense of doing equity, which requires the Vatican's minor estate, or other fiction, constructive quasi-contracts are based solely upon a legal fiction or fiction of law, which is why they use the Vatican's fictitious minor estate under the Vatican's Roman law and fraud and deception of capitis diminutio. Capitis diminutio is the destruction of the caput or legal personality. Capitis diminutio, so to speak, wipes out the former individual, puts a new one in his place, and between the old and new individual there is, legally speaking, nothing in common. A juristic personality may be thus destroyed in one of three ways: by loss of status libertatis, that is capitis diminutio maxima; by loss of status civitatis, which is capitis diminutio media; and by severance from the agnatic family. This entails capitis diminutio minima. That's taken from a textbook of the history and system of Roman private law. Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Capitis diminutio maxima, meaning a maximum loss of status through the use of capitalization, the highest and most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage, when he became a slave, swept away all the rights of citizenship and family rights. Because the Vatican's fraud and deception of capitis diminutio maxima is used when they enslave people, and their Satanists using fraud and deception to sell people into slavery as collateral for their minor estate. He, the prisoner, as a consequence of his crime, not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights except those which the law and his humanity affords him, is for the time being a slave of the state, which are non-judicial proceedings, because whenever a statute's involved, the Vatican's fake judge is actually a bought and paid for clerk masquerading as a judge. When acting as to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present day, the judge of municipal court is acting as an administrative officer, not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent of the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not a discretionary capacity. It's the accepted rule not in the state courts, but of the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes, as a ministerial clerk for an agency. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature and otherwise, act as mere clerks of the involved agency. Which is why it's a bill of pains and penalties, and similar to a bill of attainder in violation of the organic law. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3. Bill of attainder means a legislative act, no matter what their form, that apply either to named individuals or to easily ascertainable members of a group in such a way as to inflict punishment on them without a judicial trial. Bill of attainder is a special legislative act, okay? So he's not a judge. It's an usurpation from the bench. Bills of attainder are prohibited by the U.S. Constitution. Bill of Pains and Penalties is a legislative act, though similar to a bill of attainder, prescribes punishment less severe than capital punishment. Bills of Pains and Penalties are included in the U.S. Constitution bans on bills of attainder, which also means they have no authority to do anything judicial and are fraudulently and deceptively presenting themselves as a court of law. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Their legislative inferior court might be a superior court under general jurisdiction under some circumstances. A court of general jurisdiction is presumed to be acting within its jurisdiction till the contrary is shown. But when a superior court of general jurisdiction undertakes anything that is in derogation of common law, it becomes quad hoc, an inferior court of limited jurisdiction. Quad hoc means for the time being. To be the statutes that would deprive a citizen of rights of person or property without a regular trial according to the course and usage of common law would not be the law of the land. And their maritime civil codes have absolutely nothing to do with common law. When, therefore, a court of general jurisdiction proceeds under a special statute, it becomes a court of limited jurisdiction for the purpose of such proceeding. I'm just going to take a look on YouTube and see what's happening there. Charles Stewart, how you doing? Okay. So when, therefore, a court of general jurisdiction proceeds under a special statute, I need to silence my phone. It becomes a court of limited jurisdiction for the purpose of such proceeding. Accordingly, where a court of general jurisdiction undertakes to carry out a special power, a decision made in the exercise of such power is treated as a ruling of a court of limited jurisdiction, and the presumption applicable to a court of general jurisdiction that it acted within the scope of its jurisdiction does not apply. It is familiar law that when special statutory authority and derogation of common law is conferred on courts of general jurisdiction, such a court of general jurisdiction becomes quad hoc, a court of inferior or limited jurisdiction. Therefore, it's actually an administrative proceeding, just dealing with dead things under the Roman law of trusts. A ministerial act is an act where the public officer is required to perform prescribed manner in obedience to the mandate of legal authority and without regard to his own judgment or opinion concerning such acts' propriety or impropriety when a given state of facts exists. Discretion, on the other hand, is a power conferred on public functionaries to act officially according to the dictates of their own judgment. When acting to enforce a statute and subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of municipal court is acting as an administrative officer. He's dealing with dead things. It's trust law, and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating and enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent for the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not a discretionary capacity. It's the accepted rule not in the state courts, but of the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're acting as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes as a bought and paid for clerk for the agency. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, and otherwise act as mere clerks of the involved agency, which is a fraud and deceptive because it's actually an executive agency working for the legislative branch. The word administrative is synonymous with the word executive. The word administrative connotes of or pertains to an administration, especially management, as by managing or conducting or superintending the execution and application of conduct of persons or things. Let me go back here. This is page 13. I think I'll do something. I'm going to find... Right.
We had a really great speaker on last night, and I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm not going to repeat it, but He said something very intelligent, that all crimes are commercial except for murder.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's actually in the Code of Federal Regulations, 1711, 27 CFR 1711. Yeah, let me put that here.
Thank you. I didn't state the code. I'll put that in with the quote.
27 CFR 1711. Yeah, when the legislator desires, let me just put that in quotation marks, to accomplish his object, he need not feign, he commands. Fictions of law owe their origin to the legislative of the bench. There we go. Which is full of fraud and deception, which is satanic because there's no judge for that proceeding. Is actually a bought and paid for clerk masquerading as a judge and cannot do anything judicial. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Saya. To put the petitioner into bondage, selling the petitioner into slavery as collateral for the Vatican's minor estate, as described in 31 CFR 363.6, because an entity includes the estate of a living person, such as an incompetent or a minor. And a minor can be an individual who's attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities in his or her minor account. BAR is an acronym for British Accredited Regency, at least since the Bar Treaty of 1947, and the bar is domiciled in the Vatican-owned and operated City of London. And they're claiming immunity from the International Organization Immunities Act, 59 Stat 669. They're here as regents for the Vatican under ecclesiastical Roman law. Regency, office of jurisdiction of a region or body of regents, a government or authority by regents, the purpose during which a region or body of regents governs. Person who exercises the ruling power in a kingdom during the minority, absence, or disability of the sovereign. They're here for the pimp. Well, I meant the Pope. No, I meant the pimp. Oh, I'm noticing a bunch of things that need to be fixed here. Man,
The new one's from Boston, I heard just today.
What's that?
The new pope that was named.
He's from Chicago. Yeah, he's a globalist too. It is an
They
established
all
fact.
are, aren't they?
So, because the 1871 corporation went bankrupt in 1933, it's now owned and operated by the Vatican, as previously described herein, and the Code of Law for the District of Columbia, now known as United States Code, requires all judges to be members of the bar, and approximately 70 to 90% of all legislatures in the state and federal legislatures are bar members. They're fraudulently and deceptively using the Vatican's Roman law, minor estate, to bring the District of Columbia outside a maximum of 10 miles square in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, which is deceptively using the Vatican's minor estate, using the Vatican's fraud and deception to unlawfully place Dunlap under the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, because plenary power is a dictatorship under the Vatican's Roman law. Plenary jurisdiction, the court's full and absolute power over the subject matter and the parties in the case. Plenary, full, complete, entire. Plenary. The courts of admiralty and the English ecclesiastical courts, causes or suits in respect to different courses of proceeding, and each are termed summary, plenary, or summary. Plenary are full and formal suits of those in which proceedings must be full and formal. The term summary is applied to those causes where the proceedings are more succinct and less formal. Plenary, a plenary power is a complete and absolute power to take action on a particular issue with no limitations. It's derived from the word Latin term plenus. Plenary power, that's Wikipedia, which isn't that good of a source, but it's basically the same thing as Legal Information Institute, which is a good source because that's Cornell Law School. Plenary power, complete power over a particular area with no limitations. The term is often used to describe the commerce power of Congress. Under the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, Congress is granted full power over interstate commerce. The court has found that states are not able to pass laws affecting interstate commerce without the permission of Congress. Most, if not all, court cases are administrative proceedings which dealing with a minor estate, fiction of law presumptions, and the Vatican's Roman law of trusts. The prisons are populated with slaves because a slave is a thing and has no rights. Capitis diminutio, when he became a slave. Slave is a thing and has no rights. He, the prisoner, has the consequence of his crime, not only forfeit his liberty, but his personal rights, except those which the law and its humanity has afforded him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. And because of the administrative proceedings under the Vatican's Roman law, there are more people in prison in America as a percentage of the population than there are in communist China or the Soviet Union or the worst dictatorship in history. And that there were Christians here, the bar members would be getting getting their necks stretched. If a man be found stealing any of his children of the brethren of the children of Israel, maketh merchandise of him or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. And the Innocent Project estimates that 60% of prisoners are innocent, but it's such good business for the Vatican and the Roman law so-called courts, which is one of the grievances in the organic law of the Declaration of Independence. He's plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. This is prohibiting the free exercise of Dunlap's religious beliefs in violation of Article 1 and Amendment as a Christian, which means they're satanic because the Vatican's a necromancer with their minor estate, or is bringing dead things to life and prohibited under God's laws found in the Holy Bible. And they're using, this is Deuteronomy 18:10-12, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all these things are an abomination unto the Lord, because of these abominations the Lord thy God did drive them out from before thee. And they're using fraud and deception of the Vatican's minor estate to engage in the theft of Dunlap and populate the prisons by selling people into slavery. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. And all fraud, deception, and lies come from devil and Satan. You have your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do, for he was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh of a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews or Christians and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And that's it. So that's an amicus curiae that we're going to file in support of a guy that's currently in pre-trial detention. They won't even let him out on bail.
And is it for a manufactured crime?
Yeah, it is a manufactured crime, actually, but I have a feeling they're going to leave him in there and make him go through the show trial. And he'll probably be able to defeat the whole thing, you know. Yeah.
Have you done the magistrate thing yet? Anybody can do it for him.
What do you mean, the magistrate thing?
Someone needs to go to the clerk with two witnesses and ask to see the magistrate, have his paperwork, and get denied seeing the magistrate 3 times, invoking the Sixth Amendment right to face our accuser. And by 3 denials, it's a knowing, intentional, and willful denial of the Sixth Amendment, committing a felony, and denying him due process. So you have an appearances agreed, and on 3 occasions they were denied due process. You give them 10 days to respond, and then you put them in default and send it out to the city attorney, clerk of the court, and lady at the window. I can send you a packet. And it's under best expressed under California Penal Code 849 parentheses A. You have to go into the statute. Google goes directly to B, doesn't go to A. You look up CAPC 849. And that's the most concise invocation of the Sixth Amendment right, invoking our Sixth Amendment right, common law, due process, to face our accuser.
So run that by me once more.
California Penal Code 849 states that if a person's arrested and not otherwise released, they must be taken before the nearest accessible magistrate in the county where the offense occurred and a complaint laid before the magistrate. So anybody can invoke their Sixth Amendment right for anybody, just like anyone can do a habeas corpus. So you or somebody could walk into the clerk's office, the court, and go to the clerk with 2 witnesses, and the clerk will call a person forward and says, "How can I help you?" Says, "Yeah, I'm here to see the magistrate. Can I see the magistrate?" And she'll say, "Well, what do you need the magistrate for?" And I would say, "Oh, thank you very much for asking. But I'll need all your information so you can be a witness. Would you like to be a witness?" "Oh, no," says the clerk. It says, "Okay, I'm here to see the magistrate. Can I see the magistrate?" "What's it regarding?" You can hand him the paperwork. It says, "Oh, are you here to plead guilty or not guilty?" It says, "Oh, it appears we're having an arraignment. Are you bonded and insured as an arraignment judge?" She goes, "Oh, no." I said, "Okay, well, I'm here to see the magistrate. Can I see the magistrate?" "Well, there's none here right now, so I can't see a magistrate then?" "No." At that point, you just walk away, and now you write up the fact that appearance was made, and on 3 occasions, you were denied seeing the magistrate, and then you write up simple appearance just like that, and the witnesses write up affidavits of what they heard and saw. So you have this packet of the person who went to the clerk's window and the witness affidavits, and you send off this packet of a fulfillment of promise to appear to the city attorney, clerk of the court, and the lady at the window. You take a packet in, you make your master packet, you make copies, and then you take a copy to the clerk at the window. And he says, "Here, this is for you. Would you please put it in this court record?" "Oh, I don't know what to do with it. It's a file on demand." "Oh, okay." And you have them. Then you have her stamp copy conform the original. Then you go to the city attorney. You drop off a copy to the city attorney and have the city attorney sign off receiving that copy on the master copy. And then you mail the other one to the elected clerk of the court, and you give them 10 days to respond. So after 10 days go by, when they're not going to respond, you write up a notice of default stating that on this day and time you received opportunity to rebut that we were not denied due process, and any further actions by you, your agents, or assigned will result in commercial, civil, criminal, and professional liability against you, your agents, and assigned. You take that one pager, go back to the clerk of the window, hand her that a copy, and then you go over to the city attorney, hand them a copy, and you send the other one to the clerk of the court. So everyone's been given notice and opportunity to be heard, and there's a denial of the Sixth Amendment, which short circuits everything. And that's California Penal Code 849 parentheses A.
Well, that sounds like something. Yeah, send me some stuff on that. I can't use it in this case because he's charged. He was actually arrested in Egypt, and so he was outside the country. I told him that you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have. You have no constitutional rights outside the country, and you shouldn't have gone outside the country. And
well, I would still invoke my Sixth Amendment right and put a cog in the wheel because it's one giant corporate governance everywhere, and I assert my Sixth Amendment right goes face my accusers everywhere. So might as well just throw it in there and then let them chew on it.
I agree. Yeah, you can certainly throw a wrench into things. We're putting appealable issues in there right now. We're doing a prohibition, and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, send me that because I'd be interested. I don't know where you're going to send it to. You're going to upload it to my page on the We Are Law.
Yeah, I could put it in there.
Or email it to me, whichever.
You gave him
send me your email.
Gave him the email last week or something.
Engineer Win at Yahoo.
It gets okay. Engineer Win at Yahoo. Yeah, okay. And it's if you look up California, how do I know this? I got a DUI back in 2001, and it's a funny story. Anyway, on the back of the gold sheet, you turn it over, and there it was right on the back of the gold sheet, the remedy to the whole thing. And it says there's a magistrate on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, according to statute. So there's always a magistrate on duty to write out warrants of arrest.
The courts are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But go ahead.
But the magistrate's available 24/7 to write out warrants for arrest. So Penal Code 849A is always available. You just have to demand to see the magistrate. And if something happens, like the clerk, you ask her twice and she gets her supervisor, well, then you have to start the see the magistrate 3 times. It has to be one question 3 times to one person with 2 witnesses. So if the clerk comes, you have to do, no, I'm here to see the magistrate. It's not an adversarial thing. You're just asking to see the magistrate. It's not, they'll try to make it adversarial. But I get all excited because, I'd really like to see the magistrate. Can I go see one? I've never gotten to see the magistrate before. That would be really cool if I could see the magistrate. You're being earnest and, not hostile at all.
Right.
And they don't know what to do with that. When you're all happy about seeing the magistrate, they get all freaked out.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. I know that there's other people I know that could use this for sure.
Well, the best thing to do is not fuck up and have to use it. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. They're looking for bodies to fill the private prisons.
Right.
But when you ask to see the magistrate right away, you ask right there, oh, let's go see the magistrate right now. Oh, I really like to see one. I've never gotten to see one cop on the side of the road if they're doing an arresting. That freaks them out because something. And then when the cops don't do it, now the cops have committed the felony because the penal code says you have to go see the magistrate. And when the cop doesn't do it, he's committed the crime. Or she, whatever. They. Them, they.
It's occurred more than once.
What happened more than once?
That exact situation is where you demand to see the magistrate and there isn't one available.
Sure. You realize the denial is the remedy. They're violating the penal code. First time I break it, she broke the penal code. That could be a mistake. I can forgive it. The second time she broke the penal code, that was intentional, a misdemeanor. The third time she broke the penal code, she willfully continued to violate the penal code. She committed a felony to give us a way out. That's how honorable they are. They will commit a felony to give us a way out. It's an honorable system.
Yeah, they're a bunch
You just
of
have to
tyrants.
document it. Well, you know, she violated the penal code in order to give me a way out.
Yeah. Well, and so what's wrong with that, eh?
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm saying it's an honorable system. Now, someone who doesn't want to go, you realize by walking into the courtroom, if I had walked into the courtroom, on the day I showed up, the case was gone. There was no courtroom to go to. But when someone comes and walks into the courtroom, well, because there's a courtroom to go to, now there's an admission that I violated the penal code because I didn't go ask to see the magistrate, invoking my Sixth Amendment right. And now, and so I'm the one that violated the penal code. And then whether or not you're riding your bicycle too fast or riding your bicycle drunk on Newport Beach and you fall over or something like that, now they decide how naughty you were and how much spankings you should get for being naughty. But it's the violating the penal code is the crime, and then how naughty you were determines the punishment. That's where the penalty is for violating the penal code, not going to see the magistrate.
Yeah. Well, send that to me. I'd be interested in it. I know some other people that could use it.
Yep. My only problem is telling these people this. Now, people think they can go out and get out of doing something and go do something stupid and kill somebody. If you hurt somebody, you're fucked. You will definitely go under the jail, and they should if they're trying to get away with doing stupid shit. Uber's too cheap and everything else. No reason to get off. It's just it's a moral hazard. Talking about this, so
Yeah. You know, I mean, yeah. Okay, sounds good.
some people,
Anybody?
you know, when they talk about 1856 with Bouvier, when I'm in paralegal school at University of San Diego, we had the business class come in, the lawyers came in, and they were talking about limited liability. And I asked after the course of class was over, I said, where does this limited liability thing come from? Because we say so? He goes, you know, that's a really good idea. I have never really questioned where it came from. This is the high-ranking attorneys over in San Diego. They all come down and teach at USD. And so I finally was walking through the stacks at USD in the private stack where you can't take the books out. There was this green book called Maritime Law. So I pulled down this green book called Maritime Law, and I just happened to go look up and see it and inspired to go look at it. I go to the index, and it said, I looked up limited liability. I found limited liability in the index. And in the index said limited liability, C, marshaling assets. When Lincoln marshaled the assets and after World War II, marshaled the world, that's where limited liability came from because all the assets were put into one giant pile. Then it comes down to the liability among joint tortfeasors and who carries the primary active degree of fault under maritime law. That's where limited liability comes from. And of course, that's where the constructive trust comes from. Everything's held in the constructive trust. All we do is trade interest in titles, not actual title. Because everything's marshaled under Lincoln's gambit. Limited liability, liability among joint tortfeasors and the primary active degree of fault. Insurance is an extreme form of indemnification, and indemnification is an extreme form of insurance. That's under Tulane Law School. You say primary active degree of fault to some of these people, and they freak out. Derek did that for his dog. She says, told this veterinarian on the side outside of the vet. He says, "Well, who's carrying the primary active degree of fault for your ethics violation?" She went apeshit. I was on the phone with him. She went apeshit crazy. "Don't you ever do that? Don't you ever accuse me of that?" She went apeshit because they had taken out a PIC line for Hank when he had some parvo, and they took it and they wouldn't put the IV back in, but she put the IV back in before they left because they could charge her with who's carrying the primary active degree of fault for your ethics violation. She connipted. But you can look up joint. You can look up liability among joint tort feasors. You can look that up. It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
The president carries the primary active degree of fault because the office of the president stole all the gold. So the president should be involved in every single case because he carries the primary active degree of fault. But you want me to pay for it and you've taken everything I own? No, go get the president. He carries the primary active degree of fault. Tell him to bring down his big bags of gold and settle this matter. He's the primary tort feeser. That office is. Anyway, I just want to share that with you.
Yeah, send me that. I'd be interested in taking a look at it. It sounds pretty interesting.
Cool.
Well, I certainly hope that works for the gentleman incarcerated. Due to
The naughty boy do?
manifest.
What did the bad boy do? I see him with a bad boy sticker on the back
You
of his
don't
window.
have to do much. He was in Egypt, so you don't
What
have
did he-
to do much there.
What did he do?
He was the
Well, we
CEO of
didn't-
a cryptocurrency company, and they charged him with mail fraud.
Mail fraud. That's a good one. Mail fraud. And then they shipped him back here.
Yeah, well, yeah, they
Is what
picked
they
him
did?
up in Egypt and brought him back. Yeah.
So they transported a human. It's human trafficking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true.
He should have put a registered mail sticker on his chest and register himself. And they go through the Federal Maritime Commission to enter the United States. That would have been fun.
Thing is that he shouldn't have left the country when he had this kind of stuff going on. He should have stayed in the country. At least here he's got constitutional rights. He can still claim them, but when they picked him up outside the country, you have nothing in a foreign country.
Who picked him up? Marshals?
I think it was the FBI.
Well, even then, I think he carries those wherever he goes. Because if someone's arrested, they have to go. The consulate has to be contacted right away. It's part of the Foreign Affairs Manual. So the consulate gets involved. The FBI is there. He's back under federal control anyway, especially when they put the hands on him. So I think the United States instantly appears. Why go to Egypt? Why go to Egypt anyway? Want to go see the Sphinx or something? Want to go? What the fuck? Why would I go to a shithole like that? Why shithole like that?
He was there with his girlfriend, and I think it was like made a mistake.
Oh, the belly dancer. Oh, the belly dancer.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't want to hear any of those stories, but no, that's a place with lots of riches. So anyone in trade, they're very interested in Egypt.
I like America. America.
At least when you're here, you got constitutional rights.
Yeah.
That's why Trump had to. I made a video that Trump had to do that wall because, once those people, anybody comes into America, they're entitled to common law, and it makes it very difficult for them, for anybody to get them out of the country. I mean, he's using.
Well, except for the fact that they're committing a federal crime, entering illegally. I mean, that's an issue.
Yeah, but it's completely different when they do it outside the country. And that's why the first thing they do is take them to Guantanamo Bay, because they don't have any rights in Guantanamo Bay. That's foreign territory. You see what
it's military territory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, military.
So they don't have rights in Guantanamo Bay, or their rights are a lot different than they are here. That's why they take them to Guantanamo Bay.
Comes under NDAA, you know, the indefinite detention and all that stuff on the NDAA.
Yeah.
Thanks, Obama. He loves America. Both of he's do. Both him and him. I mean, his husband and his wife. I mean, him and him. I mean, whatever. But they love America.
Yeah.
All this for a stupid flag when he got sworn in the first time. They lip read what Michelle said to Obama. All this for a stupid flag is what she said. I guess I forgot there's deaf people out there who can read lips.
Yeah. So anyway. Yeah, send that to me. I'd be interested in looking at.
I'll send you the packet.
All right.
Nice. So are you going to show us that? Are you going to show us that one you're going to send out to Trump, or I mean, President Trump?
Well, I'm not done with it. I'm still working on it.
Well, work on it. We don't mind.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of work because, you know, I try and keep it as short and sweet as possible, but I want to tell him that there's a lot of people that like what he's doing, and enlighten him about. Well, it's going to have a lot of the stuff that this amicus curiae, a lot of that stuff is going to be in there, because he needs to know that. Because that 1871 corporation is unconstitutional. That's bringing Roman law into America, and the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, and so I think certainly that minor estate is unconstitutional, but I think that 1871 corporation is unconstitutional, and so was the National Bar Foundation. Because that's all they're foreign agents of the Roman cult, and so, anyways, I guess we'll see. But the remote viewers actually remote viewed Congress adjourning for the last time, and maybe it's because I sent them this. I don't know, but I'm certainly going to do everything I can to make sure they do that. Congress adjourned for the last time, and so, but then what they got to do is reconstitute the republic, you know. And they can't just, you know, let Congress adjourn for the last time. They got to reconstitute the republic, because right now that Congress is owned and operated by the Vatican.
Well, but you know, they set up the DNA, Declaration of North America, where Mexico, Canada, and the United States are merged together commercially. And did you ever look at that the day Congress ceased to exist? Did I drop that in there? The day Congress ceased to exist, where all three branches of government were put under the executive. When Lincoln called them back in, even though Congress could have reconvened itself under its own authority, but instead they all just went back under Lincoln's invitation on July 4th to meet under the executive branch. And
the 15th of April of 1861.
That's the invite. They met on the 4th of July. Yeah. You realize Trump... But Trump, you know, Trump doesn't have an SF-61 on file, so he's not actually appointed to public office. He's just a commercial administrator, because he doesn't have a SF-61 appointment to public. No one does. No one in the government has a SF-61 on file. When they're joint chiefs, nobody. Even the DOD seal is trademarked in Canada. All the great seals are trademarked in Canada. United States is an EDGE Act bank. Every state, every county, they're all foreign EDGE Act banks.
Well, I think
so crazy how they put it here.
You know, there was a group of 200 generals that asked Trump to run, and they were talking about overthrowing Obama. So that tells me that there's some white hats out there that want to restore the republic. And so I think that's what they're working on. But, you know, I guess we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, they can't tell you what they're going to do, because if they tell you, the enemy knows too. So they have to, everything's got to be done in secret.
But you realize the republic was moved offshore in 1940. If you look up American Republic under Title 22, 611, American Republic, It was moved offshore, and all the domestic duties of the Secretary of State were handed over to the Attorney General, and the Secretary of State just sells armaments. So interesting how that happened. And then Barr, before he left, he met with the fraternity of police and he was telling the police if they flee, just shoot them in the back. Because the Attorney General, it's under military rule. The Attorney General, that's why Lindsey Graham in 2013 declared the homeland a battleground.
Yeah, well, it's probably going to come to that. That's one of the things I'm telling Trump is that the militia is every able-bodied man between the age of 18 and 45 years old, and I think that he's going to have to call up the militia. And I suggested that he read that Edwin Vieira's book, The Sword and the Sovereignty.
Yeah. And in Alabama, each one of the counties in Alabama has a probate judge. It's all probate judges there. And the probate judge can call out the militia, has the authority to call out for that county, to call out the militia, the probate judges in Alabama, at the county level. Yep. And it's 18 to 64. Anyone who served active duty, they're still in the militia to 64 years of age. Otherwise, 45.
Oh, really? You
Yep.
know, and that's one thing I'm telling Trump is that I'm well past the age of 45, but I told him I'd help out any way I can, and I'm already doing what I can with my YouTube channel and everything. But I'm certainly prepared to help out. You know what I mean?
Now, hopefully they'll bring me back in, put me back in a KC-135 and go out and flying around doing all kinds of fun stuff again. That'd be fun.
Yeah, well, I do aerospace engineering consulting, so hopefully I get a job doing something like that, you know. But anyways.
You could be our crew chief. Load balancing.
I certainly know how to do the crew chief stuff. I'm not too much on doing load balancing, although it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, the KC-135 just carries fuel. But
KC, kerosene and cargo.
Yeah.
KC, kerosene and cargo. And you can put the probe out to a certain extent and then turn on the pumps, and then you can spray everything and create napalm. Or if you can light up the skies for missiles, we can light up, pump fuel out. Adjusting gross. It's called adjusting gross weight when we do that. We're just adjusting gross weight.
You know, 107 says that these chemtrails that they're putting up there are actually a missile defense system. Some of them are actually a missile defense system that what they do is they make it so that if there's hypersonic missiles come in, they put these particles up at like about 40,000 feet, and they can jiggle them, and when the hypersonic missile hits them, it'll disintegrate, and that's part of a missile defense system. So
I'm sure they could electrify. They could even electrify it, I suspect, too. Excited DW it. Go through a plasma, some kind of plasma as it comes in.
You know, I don't know, but it's some pretty interesting stuff. You hear 107 talking about that, you know. So, you know, anyways. Okay, well, if that's about
All
it,
right.
Lori, did you have anything else? Might as well cash it in. We're about done for tonight, I think.
Yeah, that was great info. Is there anybody that has any questions? I don't want to hog the mic because my voice sounds like crap today, but that was very prominent information that you both shared. Thank you very much. Anyone else have any more questions? I don't want to keep Glenn longer because he is on holiday again.
Yeah, life is rough.
Yeah, don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Anybody have any questions?
I'm waiting for my exceedingly to pay out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me 3 actually now. So that's
Wait for what to pay out? Oh, yeah, that's right. Your investment scheme. Yeah.
Exceedingly, yeah. It's
Our retirement package.
it'll in July I'll get a 124,000.
Stop bragging.
Well,
Did you?
what I'm gonna
Glenn,
do
did you ever? Okay.
what I'm gonna do is I'm going to buy a $50,000 Smart Lab subscription, and that'll give me $1,200 a week. And then what I'm gonna do is roll the rest of it over.
Yeah, it's good money management because it's a continuous thing that you don't have to take too much of your, time to manage.
Well, and then if I roll it over in October, I'll have like about a $500,000, and I'll buy a $400,000 Smart Lab subscription. And that'll give me $10,000 a week.
Yeah, tell everybody how you found out about that investment.
Well, the Smart Lab is what I found out about first. And what they do is they do sports betting. Now, I'm not a big I don't do gambling. Quite frankly, I'm just not good at that kind of stuff. My father-in-law was a professional gambler. He would go to casinos and they'd kick him out of there. But anyways, so I'm just not into gambling. But you're not gambling with this web bot. Gambling is a huge business on these games. There's hundreds of bookies and all sorts of stuff. And I knew about it because a friend of mine likes to bet on these games and stuff. Anyways, so I was familiar with it already. And but what they do is you buy a subscription to a bot. That what it does is it goes and it just scrapes the internet looking for bookies that have their odds and their bets, their odds at us to where they can pick a game, and you have two different bookies set up so that if you win or you lose, no matter what, you make money. And so
800%. I mean, yeah, an 800% return.
no, that's exceedingly. That's not Smart Lab. So Smart Lab. So what I did is I bought a $6,200 subscription last May. So I've had it now for a year, and I've already made back about $12,000. And I have another $6,000 that I'm going to make. It's they tell you how much it'll pay out. There's a maximum payout that it'll do, and then you have to buy another subscription. And so it's going to be going for about another year probably. And I've already made about 12,000 from it. So I'll probably make. They have quarterly bonuses. They have all these little things that pay you extra. But when I bought it, I told a friend of mine, and he bought a $20,000 subscription, and I got 9% of what he invested. So I got $1,900 when he bought that $20,000 subscription. So that's why I say I've gotten back about $12,000 on that thing so far. I get regularly every week $100, $110, and then plus there's a quarterly bonus that's like about $500, and there's these other little nickel and dime bonuses and stuff like that. Now, when you buy a $20,000 subscription or higher, so you can buy 20, 50. I think there's a 150 and a 450. There's a 300 and a 450. I think those are the different subscription levels. Anyways, when you buy 20,000 or more, they'll pay for your airfare and give you a hotel room and fly you. They have these events all over the world, where it'll be a soccer game. You'll go, they'll fly you to the soccer game, and you'll be watching the soccer game, and you'll see the bots betting on the soccer game, and then when the soccer game's over, they make money. and you'll see it all happening right there in front of you. And so they'll pay for your free trip to go and watch all that happen. And so it's pretty interesting. So it's real legitimate. I'm telling you, it's really legitimate, because I know that these things happen. The exceedingly is they have some other stuff that I'm not sure how they make their money, but they pay out every time. They've been paying out every time. And so I've actually gotten, I put in $13,000 into exceedingly, and so far I've gotten about 31,000 out. And so I've gotten well over my initial investment, and right now I put it on quarterly. So we'll see. I would say be conservative about it. Don't put money in there you're not prepared to lose. They say that your investments are guaranteed, but the interest is not. So, but they said they paid out every time so far, and so I don't know. I know that they go and they act as a escrow for people that want to buy cryptos, and they do a bunch of things that they do to make money, and what they say is that they do hedge fund investments, the same kind of investments that hedge funds do, except that they want to make it available to little people. And so that's why they have dropped their interest rates that they pay, and so which is actually, I think it's a good sign, because the interest rates they're paying, even when they're dropped, are still pretty good. It used to be 81% a month, and now it's down to 70% a month. And the quarterly was 800% for a quarter, and now it's down to 600%. So you put in, like I put in $15,000, and it's on the 800% program. It's the older program. And so that's why in July, latter part of July, I'll get 124,000. Plus, I'll have my 15,000 still too, and so that's about 140,000. And so that'll give me enough to buy a 50,000. I'm figuring it'll probably cost me about 60,000 for the Smart Lab subscription, but then it'll
And that's the one you were invited into, right?
Well, the Smart Lab is one that I already knew about, and I knew about that the longest. I knew about that for about a year and a half. It's about a year ago when I bought this subscription. What happened is there's this guy that we're helping, that he's in jail right now. There's a lady that was doing the Smart Lab subscriptions, and so she introduced us to the Smart Lab, actually, and she didn't tell us about Exceedingly until till Christmas, but she told us, and the Exceedingly guy she met at a Smart Lab event, right? Because she's bought these $20,000 subscriptions and flown all over the world and gone to these events. She goes to them all the time. Anyways,
yeah, you told us about her last week. You said she had no issue with handing over 10 grand out of her wallet, and there were plenty left, you said. I recall.
It wasn't 10 grand. It was like $1,500, but she just pulled out a wad of $100 bills and counted them out. But so anyways, so she introduced us to the Smart Lab, and we're helping this friend of hers. It's a friend of hers that's in this prison. And so what we're doing is, the only thing we can do is creating appealable issues, and hopefully we can get him out before the show trial. But if not, at least we'll have appealable issues in place so we can bring him up on appeal. But so anyways, so she introduced us to this Exceedingly, because she had met this Exceedingly guy at a Smart Lab event. And so I figured, since I'm helping her friend, and she was paying us a lot of money to to because there's airfares and all sorts of stuff flying all over the place to go to these court cases. There's in Chicago, had to fly up there for the day and then fly back. So that was costing her quite a bit of money. And so she got tired of giving us all that money. And she told us about this exceedingly and said, I'm not going to give you any more money now. You just do this exceedingly. And so I figured, well, she's kind of on the hook. And if she's got to, it's got to pay out, because if it doesn't, then I'm going to be looking to her to make it right. And so anyway, that's why I put in $13,000. That was about all I had to put in. And it paid off real nice. So
have you gotten an exemplified copy of the complaint from the clerk? Go to the clerk and ask for an exemplified copy.
This is Egypt, remember?
Well, whoever's in jail, he's back here in the States, right? The FBI picked him up and brought him back here.
Yeah, he is. Yep.
Yeah, so I would go to the clerk and get an exemplified copy of the complaint, because the complaint itself is a security.
Okay, exemplified copy. I've never heard of an exemplified copy.
It has the judge's and the clerk's seal on it. And then I'm working on getting the warrant claim, because there's a QSIP number tied to the complaint. So it's already paid for. They want to run away with the funds and leave his ass in jail as the asset, but they've already been paid.
So get an exemplified copy of the warrant and the complaint? There's an
exemplified copy. Well, whatever the complaint is, whatever they're using as the complaint, they'll hold them there. Get an exemplified copy of the charging of whatever the complaint or whatever they're using.
Okay. That's in federal court too?
State court, federal court, they're all securities. All these courts are just banking institutions, foreign banking institutions. So
I knew that.
They're taking up.
I've never.
So they've already.
I've never heard of the exemplified copy. And then.
Yeah, I got an exemplified copy of both the complaint for this thing, HOA thing, and I got an exemplified copy of the order. They're both securities. And then I'm working on getting the QSIP number and then going back in and grabbing those funds of that security that my ass was on the line for, or the estate was on the line for, and go cash it out and have the IRS go scoop it up. 1099-B.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of that stuff.
Okay. But you can ask for it. Exemplified copies.
Well, I'm planning on it. I'm definitely going to ask for it. It's actually there's going to be a hearing on the 28th of this month, and I'm not flying there, but somebody else is, and I'll tell them to go to the clerk and ask for an exemplified copy of the indictment.
Yeah, the indictment. That's a grand jury indictment. But then there's a complaint that comes down after the indictment. Because they don't. What was in the indictment? You know what?
There's a criminal complaint. I can tell you that.
Yes, the criminal complaint. I would try to get exemplified copies of all of it, because they're all securities.
Okay. Okay. Well.
Which means they've already created the money. It's already paid for, but they want to go push it in offshore accounts and then leave his ass in prison while they go off and run away with the money. And they don't have a Form 56 on file, which anytime there's a summons, there has to be a Form 56 on file under 7603 and 6903. But they don't put a 56 on file to notify the United States that they are tapping into his estate, and by not giving notice and opportunity to be heard to the United States, they're denying the United States due process, committing treason. Because they don't have a Form 56 on file, because they're acting as executors of the estate.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar at all with any of that, and so I'm not sure how to do any of that, but I'll certainly tell them to get an exemplified copy of the complaint.
Yep, and there's no 56 on file.
So would that be the charging agent that would be making that complaint?
What complaint to who, to what? I mean, I'm talking about Form 56s, about treason, or talking about the complaint that the summons and appearance has already been put out there? What are we talking about?
That one.
The summons?
Yes.
As far, well, you get an exemplified copy, now you hold the security. And then we just flip it on them. And now they have to pay.
So, but wouldn't we want to know who the charging agent is responsible for generating everything?
No, we'll let Treasury deal with that. Let the IRS deal with that.
Okay, cool.
They've created a counterfeit security. It's a counterfeit security. It's an unregistered counterfeit security that they're trading privately internationally. That's what they're doing. And they want your ass to stay in prison while they go gamble with with the money they've already charged up the account. They're just swapping assets, his ass for those securities. Now he can go get these securities and let his ass go and still get the money back. It's W-4.
So what do? You send it to the IRS?
Yeah, the IRS is our interface to the Treasury. Mm-hmm. The securities they charged up his Social Security number to account. And that's where they went to the IMF, pulled down credit, and named him as the surety, presumptively. And then they didn't tell the United States that they're acting as executors of. You realize our estates already have a special lien against it under 6324. There's a special lien on our estates because the United States has that $10 maritime lien under Article 1, Section 9. But they're not telling the United States they're tapping into the estate. They're committing treason and piracy against the United States. They're acting as executors without notifying the Secretary in Puerto Rico with a Form 56 that they're administering his estate. And that's treason and piracy because they're going to run away with the money offshore. Well, they already have. Yeah, that's already happened.
I have to get my head around all that stuff. I guess I'll just get an exemplified copy first of all, and then take it from there.
But if you look up 6903 of Title 26, 6903, and then go look up 7603 of Title 26, and then look up 6324 of Title 26. $69.03, $76.03, and $63.24. Is that too fast still?
$69.03, $76.03, and $63.24. Okay.
$63.24. Yep. And if you look at the top of the Form 56s, both F and no F, those code sections that apply for the Form 56 are there. 6324, 6036 for the attorneys, and 6041, I think, is another one. On the Form 56 is that the fiduciary appointment has to happen under Title 26 because they're tapping into the social. Okay. They're acting as executors.
One step at a time. I'll get the exemplar. What's it called? Exemplary.
Exemplified.
Exemplified. I gotta write it down. Exemplified.
Simplified copy of the complaint. The summons. The complaint. I would ask, even if there's a grand jury, I would ask for an exemplified copy of the grand jury indictment. Then it'd be fun to take the grand jury indictment, see if you can't get it authenticated, which I bet you can. If they can't get the grand jury indictment authenticated, then it's a simulated legal process because it's not authentic.
Right. Yeah, I know. We already think that's happening, and we've brought it up, and so far they're ignoring it. But that's in the bill. It's in the prohibition. We brought that up.
It's a simulated legal process. There is no grand jury indictment. It can't be authenticated. It's a simulated legal process. Kidnapping, assault and battery, wrongful arrest, false imprisonment, human trafficking. There is no charging instrument.
Yeah, for sure.
They
Okay.
just they created his debt and shanghaied him and then put him in a cage, hoping he won't figure it out.
Okay, I got to go. But we'll
All
see
right,
you guys
talk to you
next
later.
week. Same time, same place, same channel.
Okay, we'll talk to you during the week. Take
You
care.
bet. See ya.
Ciao.